The national security chiefs of South Korea and the US hold an unannounced meeting at the White House. The talks come on the eve of the allies' respective summits with North Korea. South Korea's central bank holds its key rate steady at 1.5% for April. The Bank of Korea's governor, Lee Ju-yeol, starting his second term as chief, is also due to lay out his plans for the coming months. Plus, US President Donald Trump warns Russia that it should get ready for a missile strike on Syria, vowing to thwart any of Moscow's missile defenses. Our top story this morning, South Korea's top security advisor, Jae-in, who is in Washington on an unannounced visit, has sat down at the White House with President Trump's newly appointed National Security Advisor, John Bolton. The flurry of diplomacy comes ahead of the allies' respective summits with Pyongyang. Lee Jae starts us off.
With the Inter-Korean Summit now just over 2 weeks away, and the historic U.S.-North Korea summit slated for sometime in May or early June, South Korea's top national security advisor Jae-in made a surprise visit to Washington on Wednesday to meet with his U.S. counterpart, John Bolton. The meeting was Jung's first with Bolton since the U.S. National Security Advisor took office, and his second visit in the past month as he traveled to Washington last month shortly after his meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang. According to an unnamed source, Seoul expressed his desire to arrange a meeting after Bolton took office and to establish a direct communication channel between the two to coordinate preparations for their respective summits. While Seoul remains strongly against any armed conflict on the peninsula, President Trump's appointment of Bolton, a well-known hawk, has raised concerns that the U.S. could consider military action against the North if the summit goes badly. Bolton, a former U.S. ambassador to the UN, recently argued for a preventive strike on North Korea, even though he stresses that it's not his favored option. Meanwhile, Cho Yoon-jae, the South Korean ambassador to the U.S., and Susan Thornton, acting U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asia, plan to hold regular summit-related meetings from next week. Lee Jae, Arirang News.
Now, Wednesday marked the 6th anniversary of Kim Jong-un being elected as the first secretary of North Korea's Workers' Party. To mark the day, North Korea's state-run daily, the Nodong Shinmun, which also serves as the main organ of the party, mentioned Kim's dual policy of seeking economic and nuclear development as one of his key achievements. At a party conference in May 2016, Kim was promoted to chairman. With the Supreme People's Assembly holding its meeting in Pyongyang on Wednesday, ahead of the April 27th summit between the two Koreas, reports say Kim did not attend the meeting but didn't elaborate on why. And here in Seoul, the presidential office is busy working on its upcoming summit with North Korea. With just over 2 weeks to go, President Moon Jae-in sat down with the preparation committee on Wednesday, directing them to make sure his summit with Kim Jong-un goes smoothly. He also wants everything just right, so it paves the way for a successful meeting between President Trump and the North Korean leader. Hwang Ho-jun with the details.
The South Korean president is determined to dot the I's and cross the T's for the upcoming Inter-Korean summit. During Wednesday's meeting of the Interagency Preparation Committee, President Moon Jae-in called for the formation of a comprehensive situation room so that all government agencies can check daily on their readiness up until April 27th. The meeting took place at the Blue House and was chaired by the president himself. It was the 5th meeting of its kind since Seoul and Pyongyang reached an agreement to hold a summit early last month. President Moon emphasized that the summit could change the course of the nation's history, and therefore preparations must be made with much effort and determination. But he also insisted on prudence.
한 번에 모든 문제를 다 해결하겠다는 지나친 의욕으로 접근하기보다는 이번 남북 정상회담을 계기로 오랜 기간 단절되었던 남북 관계를 복원하고 평화와 번영의 한반도로 나아가는 튼튼한 지짐돌을 놓는다는 생각으로 임해주기 바랍니다.
He also underscored that the April summit could lead to the first ever summit between leaders of the U.S. and North Korea, which in itself would be historic. And with both the U.S. and North Korea actively preparing for that, President Moon said he expects the Washington-Pyongyang summit will be a giant step toward denuclearization and lasting peace.
그 목표를 위해서 우리는 남북 정상회담이 북미 정상회담의 성공으로 이어지는 좋은 길잡이 역할을 할 수 있도록 준비해 나가야 할 것입니다.
President Moon called for the joint success of the two summits, and to ensure that they are held in smooth succession, the South Korean leader ordered related agencies, including the Foreign Affairs Ministry and Seoul's National Security Office, to exchange information, closely communicate, and collaborate with Washington. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Now, President Moon has also reaffirmed South Korea's close coordination with Japan when handling North Korea issues. Meeting with Japanese Foreign Minister Taro Kono in Seoul on Wednesday, President Moon called for efforts to improve bilateral cooperation, calling it a necessary step for successful summits with Pyongyang. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
지금 남북 정상회담과 또 북미 정상회담을 앞두고 있고 또 한중일 삼국 회담도 앞두고 있는 그런 시기여서 한일 양국 간의 긴밀한 소통과 협력이 어느 때보다 중요한 시기라고 봅니다.
And following those talks, South Korea's presidential office confirmed that a trilateral summit with China and Japan has been arranged for May in Tokyo. It will be the first such meeting since 2015. Although the exact date has not yet been fixed, the top office said the president and the government will actively cooperate on prepping for a successful three-way summit. South Korea has reiterated its stance that no argument can be accepted on Japan's false territorial claims over South Korea's easternmost island of Dokdo. A press release on Wednesday's talks between Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa and her Japanese counterpart Taro Kono said the message was relayed as Kono expressed Tokyo's stance on the wartime sexual slavery issue and Dokdo Island. Kang also reiterated South Korea's stance on the so-called comfort women issue, which is that Seoul asked Japan to make a sincere apology to the victims. The diplomats also discussed ways to cooperate over the upcoming Inter-Korean summit and to further develop their bilateral ties. Now, after holding talks with his Russian and Chinese counterparts in recent days, North Korea's top diplomat Ri Yong-ho is continuing to rack up the air miles, this time travelling to Tajikistan. The rare flurry of diplomacy suggests the regime is aiming to earn support from its two traditional allies, as well as other members of the international community, ahead of its big summits with Seoul and Washington. Oh Jung-hee with the details.
North Korea continues its diplomatic efforts to garner support ahead of summit talks with South Korea and the United States. After meeting with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and attending the Non-Aligned Movement Summit last week, North Korean Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho met with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow on Tuesday. Ri is the highest-ranking North Korean official to visit Russia since the regime's former leader Kim Jong-il in 2011. Noting that this year marks the 70th anniversary of the two's diplomatic relations, he emphasized,
"We believe that the current situation on the Korean Peninsula, the situation around Russia, and the general international political situation demand that the two countries strengthen their friendly relations even more, build up strategic communication, and coordinate their actions."
After the meeting, Lavrov told reporters he welcomed the, quote, normalizing situation on the Korean Peninsula and Pyongyang's efforts for contact with Seoul and Washington. He said he accepted Ri's invitation to visit Pyongyang at a later date. Lavrov also hoped the current diplomatic push could lead to the resumption of the long-stalled six-party talks.
We agreed that the practical step to solve the nuclear issue on the Korean Peninsula is to proceed with the roadmap that Russia and China proposed last year. This plan helps to create conditions for peace talks.
That roadmap stipulates if North Korea halts its nuclear missile tests and South Korea and the U.S. halt their joint military drills, then this could lead to direct talks followed by a multilateral treaty for denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and security in Northeast Asia. North Korea has now completed its foreign ministerial meetings with both of its major traditional allies, China and Russia. Pyongyang's top diplomat is to stay in Russia one more day before leaving for Dushanbe to meet Tajikistan's leadership on Thursday. 오정희, Arirang News.
The Korean government has stepped up its attempts to carry out construction materials to the site of the THAAD anti-missile system in Seongju County, Gyeongsang-Bukdo province, where local residents are protesting against the construction. About 100 local residents, as well as some civic group members who are against the deployment, have occupied the road to the site for the past few months, blocking the entrance to government trucks. Some 3,000 police officers have been placed starting from around 7 a.m. on this Thursday to try and give the trucks access to the site. South Korea's defense ministry says the construction on the THAAD battery site is now an urgent matter. Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon has ordered related agencies to do their best to rescue 5 crewmen missing after their fishing boat capsized overnight. The PM on Thursday urged defence, marine ministers and the Commissioner of the Coast Guard to mobilise all equipment and manpower for the operation. At 40 past midnight on Thursday, the South Korean registered fishing boat collided with a Tanzanian cargo ship in waters off Shinan County on Korea's southwestern coast, leaving 1 dead and the other 5 crew members missing. The Coast Guard has yet to find any of the missing crewmen. Now, 13 people have been injured after a hot air balloon crashed into a golf course in Sogwipo on Jeju Island just after 8 o'clock this morning, a couple of hours ago. Rescue workers say 1 person is seriously injured, currently unconscious, the others suffering from minor injuries. Rescue workers arrived at the scene after receiving a call from a witness nearby and are currently investigating the cause of that accident. And this news just coming into us as well. The Bank of Korea has kept its benchmark interest rate unchanged at 1.5%. It's the first monetary policy meeting since the reappointment of BOK Governor Lee Ju-yeol last month. The decision follows a freeze in January and February. In November of last year, the central bank raised its key rate by 1/4 percentage point, marking the first rate hike in over 6 years. We'll have more details on this during our next newscast at noon, Korea time. Now, China's decision late last year to stop importing plastic waste has rippled around the world in recent months, with trash building up in countries like the United States and the United Kingdom. And South Korea has had its own well-publicized issues with this problem as well. Although the government managed to find a temporary fix with no long-term solution, local residents are demanding action. Lee Jung-yeon with the details.
The so-called waste chaos in South Korea started earlier this month when recycling collectors refused to take plastic bags, plastic bottles, and even styrofoam. Responding to public concern over the growing piles of trash, the Ministry of Environment says it persuaded the 48 main recycling collectors in Seoul to resume their normal service.
There may be some confusion over recycling for another couple of days, but we foresee everything returning to normal in due time.
The capital has some 3,000 residential complexes, and collection of some items was stopped at around 1,600 of them. A recent site survey by the ministry found that there are still 348 locations where it's yet to resume. With waste being produced every day and piling up outside homes, it's becoming an increasingly pressing matter for the government to come up with more than just a quick fix to the issue. The root cause of the problem, China has banned the import of 24 kinds of solid waste, declaring last July it will no longer be the world's garbage dump. In less than a year, the value of recyclables dropped from 131 or 12 US cents per kilogram to 91 or 8 cents as of last month. This has discouraged recycling collectors from processing materials that are no longer lucrative. According to Greenpeace, China used to import some 56% of the world's waste, including South Korea's. As a temporary solution, recycling collectors got compensation to resume their services. But the government is also working to improve Korea's recycling industry overall. Discussions are being held to come up with specific policies on the basis of thorough on-site inspections, which will continue until mid-June. Lee Jung-yeon, Arirang News.
The United States is set to slap duties on cold-drawn mechanical tubing imports from a number of countries, and that includes South Korea. A decision made to counter nations that are exporting the products below local market prices is seen to negatively affect industry in America. Park Hee-jun with the details.
The U.S. Department of Commerce announced Tuesday that it will impose tariffs on cold-drawn mechanical tubing from 6 countries, including South Korea, following anti-dumping duty investigations. U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross said the decision allows U.S. producers of cold-drawn mechanical tubing to receive relief from the market-distorting effects of foreign producers dumping into the domestic market, and that the department will continue to take action to defend American businesses. To that, 2 South Korean cold-drawn mechanical tubing manufacturers, Sangshin Industrial Corporation and Yulchon Chemical, will be hit with 48% tariffs, while other Korean companies will be slapped with duties of 30.67%. That's a sharp hike from the 5.1% tariffs that had been put in place last November. The other 5 countries will face tariffs ranging from 3% to over 200%. China and Germany will be hit hardest with tariffs from 44% to 186% and 3% to 209% respectively. Meanwhile, tariffs of between 12% to 30% will be imposed on Switzerland, and Italy and India will also face tariffs. The new set of tariffs will come into effect from the end of May if the U.S. International Trade Commission decides around May 24th that domestic industries are suffering losses as a result of the 6 countries selling cold-drawn mechanical tubing in the U.S. at prices lower than in their home markets. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
Now, dealing with the fallout from its dividend payout fiasco, Samsung Securities says it will compensate all shareholders who traded on the day of the mishap for their financial losses. According to the local brokerage firm, they say they will set compensation at 39,800 won. That's about $37. That was the stock's highest price on April 6th. The compensation package is being extended to all investors who held the company's shares before 9:35 a.m. and sold the stocks on the day. The firm added that trading fees and taxes will also be included in the compensation. Now, for a look at the stories making headlines around the world. US President Donald Trump has warned Russia of imminent military action against Syria over a suspected chemical weapons attack on a rebel-held town there. For more on this and other international news, let's turn, as we always do, to our Noah Adam. So, Adam, Russia has already warned that any US military action would be met with a response. Quite a worrying statement from Moscow there, but it seems President Trump is refusing to back down.
That's right, Mark. Trump reacted to that warning by tweeting Wednesday that Russia should, quote, get ready for missiles to be fired at Syria. His tweet also came after reports a US Navy destroyer had entered Syrian waters. Washington believes the Assad regime and its allies are responsible for the alleged poison gas attack, which they say did not happen. Russia's foreign ministry responded to Trump's tweets by saying, quote, smart missiles should fly towards terrorists, not towards the lawful government. Meanwhile, the UK and France are also reported to have agreed to back the US if it does take military action against the Syrian regime. However, US Defense Secretary James Mattis struck a more cautious tone, saying officials are still assessing intelligence about the suspected attack. But he said he stood ready to provide military options if requested by the president. Any suggestion of a US military confrontation against Syria will worsen what is already a tense and volatile situation in the Middle Eastern nation. It would also add more confusion to US policy in the region and deepen the rift between the United States and Russia. In another tweet on Wednesday, Trump noted that US-Russia relations were at a new low, adding there was no reason for it to be that way. The U.S. Republican House Speaker Paul Ryan has announced he will not run for re-election in November's midterm elections. He joins nearly 30 House Republicans who have announced their retirement this year. The timing of Ryan's announcement came as a surprise, as lawmakers had expected him to leave Congress if the GOP were to lose control of the House in the November vote. Speaking to reporters Wednesday, he said he wanted to spend more time with his family. He will retire in January next year. At least 257 people on board an Algerian military plane have been killed after it crashed near the country's capital on Wednesday. The plane crashed shortly after taking off from the Boufarik air base located west of Algiers and was heading to Tindouf on the border with Western Sahara. Wednesday's crash is said to be the deadliest in the world since 2014, when 298 people on board a Malaysian Airlines flight died after it was shot down over eastern Ukraine. Most of the dead were military personnel and their families, as well as Western Saharan refugees. The government has declared 3 days of national mourning.
Good morning. Korea and its neighboring countries will have a mild and sunny afternoon, so I hope you get to enjoy the spring warmth on this Thursday. And as for the daily highs, Seoul and Chuncheon will get up to 18 degrees Celsius. Daegu and Gyeongju will get up to 22 degrees. But fine dust levels in the capital area and Chungcheongdo provinces could get relatively high during the morning. But as we head into the afternoon, the air should improve. So if you do decide to go for an afternoon stroll, apply plenty of sunblock and wear sunglasses to protect yourself from the strong sunshine. Now, it's forecast to be cool and rainy nationwide on Saturday, and there should be a drop in temperatures again this weekend, so plan accordingly for your weekend. With that, let's take a look at the international weather for viewers around the world. So most of South Korea will have bright skies with spring warmth today. Most parts of North Korea will be under mostly sunny skies, but the highs will be lower than the south. And as for the rest of Asia, Manila will be under partly cloudy skies to mostly sunny skies at a high of 34 degrees. Meanwhile, in Sydney, highs of 33 degrees are expected Thursday under dazzling sunshine. And heading to North America, Vancouver and Montreal will have rain for the rest of the week and into the weekend, while Montreal is likely to hit by an ice storm this weekend. And as for South America, other than Bogota, major cities on the map will be under mostly sunny skies. Taking you to Europe, London is set to be hotter than Portugal this weekend, but Londoners should also brace for some thunderstorms. Lastly, to Africa, most major cities will be under mainly sunny skies. And that's all the weather update for now.
Well, on that peaceful note, that's where we're going to wrap up the news for now. Our next bulletin is coming up at noon Korea time. We have a packed broadcast for you. So until then, goodbye.
a small country village located between Seoul and Kaesong, Nolmun.